was hoping to find something exciting in the real estate market in Toronto and the GTA that happened over the past week. And it's difficult to come up with much because the activity was, for the most part, sideways. And this is especially true for the condo segment of the market that has been deteriorating, in that condos have a tendency to just sit on the market without many showings or any offers. The prices are trending down. The volume of condos for sale is increasing and the buyer activity is minimal. So buyers are still very cautious. Interestingly, with this as a backdrop, CREA, Canadian Real Estate Association, is talking about the year 2025 being a slam dunk for much improved sales. So we'll talk a little about that. And I'm also going to talk about how Canadians are complaining about being able to make ends meet. So those three topics, but first, let's start talking about the real estate market. We'll start with the monthly housing market update from RBC. Housing market activity is static again after June bump. The latest interest rate cut from the Bank of Canada came at the end of July, doing little to entice buyers into the housing market. Resales pulled back modestly, dipping 0.7% between June and July at the national level, partially offsetting a 3.5% advance in July. So here are the stats are for the entire country, and if you look at the traditionally busiest and most expensive markets like Toronto and Vancouver, there's a lot less activity here than usual, and the activity here is also a lot slower than at the national level. One of the things that's keeping buyers somewhat engaged is expectation of an almost certain rate cut in September. And people are thinking that even though that might bring about lower prices, but it will most likely increase buyer activity and there's going to be stiffer competition for property. So a lot of people that are thinking that way, and I agree with them, are trying to get their foot in the door right now instead of competing with people in September, October, and November. The market across Canada is flatlining. So if you look at the volume of resales for the month of July, we were at 464,000 units, and then compare it to the month of January of the same year, we were at 474,000 units. Not a huge difference, and the market in the past 7 months has been pretty flat. Buyers didn't come to market with the same enthusiasm seen in the past this July. They retreated back to the sidelines after a solid sales pickup in June. And look at the sales to new listings ratio across Canada. We had a few spikes in the past few years where it was clearly the seller's market and sellers were dictating the terms of what's happening with the price, and the conditions and all the offers and buyer activity was a lot higher. But right now we are in the balanced market territory, at this number being at 54% right now. When it comes to Toronto and the GTA, we are definitely in the buyer's territory. The market here is not balanced, and this number is a lot closer to 40%. Still, clear signs of market recovery are forming in other Ontario and BC cities. Hamilton, Burlington, Ottawa, Guelph, and Kitchener-Waterloo have all recorded a second consecutive increase in monthly sales on a seasonally adjusted basis this July. Speculatively, I would assume that the same thing that I've just described is happening there. Buyers are trying to step up and do something before the re-energized fall market is upon us. This, alongside a consistent flow of new supply from recently completed residential units, is keeping inventories up in Canada. New listings increased for a fourth consecutive month in July by 0.9% month over month, hitting a 10-month high. Yes, we're still expecting quite a few condos to close both in 24 and 25 as well in Toronto and the GTA. The number is, depending on the estimates for the year 2025, could vary from 40 to 60,000 new condo units. So that will definitely be keeping condo inventories high and will put a lot of pressure on prices and will drive that segment of the market even further into the buyer's market territory. Well, let's continue with the theme of the markets being reasonably stable and trading sideways. BMO confirms what RBC was telling us a few minutes earlier. Canadian real estate is stable. Toronto condos are an exception. Canadian real estate sales might be slower than usual, but they are stable. Home sales saw annual growth of 4.8% in July, which initially sounds like solid growth. Unfortunately, the month is compared to a historically weak period. The lender caveats by noting that sales are improving but still remain 5% below the 2019 average and remain subdued. A little progress is better than no progress. Well, if you look at the chart, it doesn't seem as encouraging what the words in the article might suggest. So residential sales for Canada are in dark blue, new listings are in light blue, and as you see, new listings are climbing up as compared to the level we saw in 2019, which is indicated by a straight line here at 100, and the residential sales are actually declining. These two graph lines are diverging and they're moving in different directions. Inventory is climbing much faster than those subdued sales, easing market pressure. New listings climbed 12.7% over the same period, leaving them 7% above 2019 levels. Only a handful of markets have failed to see inventory improve, easing those tight conditions seen post 2020 rate cut. And with the Canadian real estate market largely flatlining, we have an interesting prediction from the Canadian Real Estate Association. This is coming from an interview that aired on August 15th with one of the senior CREA's economists, where he's talking about a significantly increased volume of sales in 2025. So let's just read what he says. With another rate cut announced on July 24, we've now seen 2 rate cuts in a row, and the expected pace of future policy easing has steepened considerably, with markets now anticipating rate cuts at every remaining Bank of Canada decision this year, said Sean Cathcart. He is a CREA senior economist. Combine that with a record amount of demand waiting in the wings, and the forecast for a rekindling of Canadian housing activity going into 2025 has just gone from a layup to a slam dunk. So he's comfortable that the volume of sales activity is going to increase in 2025, and that will probably be another argument for the buyers to try and get active this fall. If some of the buyers are thinking that the buyer activity will increase following the rate cut in September, and they're already acting now in August, even more buyers will get active in the fall in anticipation of a tougher market conditions and more competitive market conditions in 2025. So this is another one of those arguments that adds fuel to the fire. As of the end of July of 2024, there were about 183,450 properties listed for sale on all Canadian MLS systems, up 22.7% from a year earlier, but still about 10% below historical averages of more than 200,000 units for this time of the year. And I want to round things off by talking about some potential headwinds that might prevent much improved sales activity in the real estate market in the fall of this year, or slam dunk precipitation of the volume of sales for 2025. We're seeing that more Canadians say they struggle to make ends meet, and that's coming from StatCan. The report, using data from the spring of 2024 cycle of the Canadian Social Survey, shows that 45% of Canadians say they're struggling to meet their day-to-day expenses, which is up from 33% in spring of 2022. The issue is more pronounced among young adults, people from lower income groups, people in households with children, and people with disabilities, the data shows. The largest proportion of the people surveyed is young adults, and these people are fighting with the increased levels of unemployment, especially here in Toronto and the GTA, where the unemployment is almost double from the national average. On top of that, they're overloaded with debt, and it's unlikely that they will just run to the shelves and start picking up inventory of the unsold condos as first-time home buyers. They will be pretty reserved given the complaints that we're seeing, which are reflective of the buyer sentiment that we can expect and the overall volumes of debt that we have as Canadians. The second category of people that were very important for builders that were bringing up their projects over the past 5 to 7 years were investors. And investors are unlikely to get active until we see the overnight policy rate somewhere in the 3 to 3.5% range, which will most likely happen by the middle of 2025. So it's quite possible, given this set of statistics, that the market is going to continue staying flat at least until the end of this year. It's very difficult to tell, but rest assured, on this channel, we'll keep you updated on any new developments and anything that's happening in the marketplace. And once we get a fresh new set of stats, we'll be sure to release a video talking about that and analyzing how it might impact the local market. So guys, as I said in the beginning of the video, the market is pretty flat at this point, but no news or little news is probably good news when it comes to real estate, the way it's been behaving in the past few months. So we're still anticipating a slightly increased buyer activity come September of this year. So be on lookout for that. If you happen to be in the market to buy an investment property or a property for your own use, especially within the condo space, there is quite a few opportunities for you to explore. If you're on the other side and you're thinking about selling and you want to make sure that you extract the most equity out of the sale of your house or your condominium, you need to go through all the proper steps and prepare, and you need to talk to an expert. So for that reason, I'm including a link to our calendars in the description box below. You can either talk to me, my name is Vlad, or you can talk to my partner, her name is Mitra, and we'll give you a free 15-minute phone consultation. We're going to talk about your objectives, things that are specific to your property, your location, your price point, your time frame. So everything that will allow you to either get the most money out of the sale of the property or get a great buy. That's about it for this week's update, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week.